Today, we delve into the sexual torture used by Hamas on October 7th, 2023, and the discovery of a new form of torture that the terrorists used targeting families that could only be the result of an unfathomable and systemic hate. Filmed on my final day in Israel in September 2025, just before the release of the last 20 living hostages, I spoke with Dr. Cochav Elkayem-Levy, who formed a commission to review the images and testimonies from that day in order to document these atrocities and to provide a voice to those who no longer have one. Throughout this episode, we include videos and visuals that are relevant to what Dr. Levy is talking about. Dr. Levy is known for her impactful work in gender equality and human rights, an expert in international law and feminist theories. Dr. Elkayem-Levy served as a Sophie Davis Fellow at Hebrew University's Leonard Davis Institute's program on gender, peace, and conflict resolution. Dr. Elkayem-Levy teaches at Reichman University and serves as a senior fellow at the Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. She received the 2024 Israel Prize in Solidarity, which is Israel's highest civilian honor, and was honored with the Medal of Distinction by the Perez Center for Peace and Innovation.
So I'm Dr. Cochav Elkayem-Levy. I'm an expert in international law, human rights, feminist theories, and climate justice. I've been very much involved in the women's protest movement here in Israel, and a lot of advocacy around women's rights, children's rights. I teach in the areas of, as I said, international human rights. I teach of the importance of the international legal system, of human rights mechanisms, and how they support people in many countries around the world.
You're talking about your work before the events of October 7th. We're focused on humanitarian rights, specifically women and children's rights.
Exactly.
Did that change somewhat or evolve with the Hamas terrorist attacks that occurred on October 7th? And if so, how?
Yes, it became far more difficult. I've been teaching about international crimes and atrocity zones, and I've visited some places and talked with victims, but I've never thought that we'll see this so close at home. And it was a shocking experience for me. I've never imagined myself documenting war crimes that happened to my people, to, our neighbors, to people that are just in your country. I always thought of it like something that we're doing for people all around the world, but it hit close home. So
when you were studying these things, so after October 7th, walk me through how you became involved in studying the atrocities that occurred and why.
Yes. So as I said, I teach in the areas of international law, human rights, and on October 7th, I was shocked, like all the people here in Israel, of the attack that was transpiring. We started getting information about people being kidnapped into Gaza. We were completely shocked. I think one of the basic things that I want people to understand is the fear, this existential fear that I've never experienced before. It was just shocking. We've been very critical of the government, but we've never imagined the security forces failing in this way. And then once I realized that we're seeing these crimes and people in the WhatsApp groups have shared information, and then the Telegram information that the terrorists started sharing themselves, live streaming, families taking hostage, murdering of people, I understood that we're seeing something completely different. And as days went by, as the days continued, me and other colleagues, we were texting each other, what's going on? Why international organizations that we usually work with are not responding. So we started reporting them and creating documents and communicating with international organizations to deliver information about what happened here, especially since hostages were taken.
Okay, and at some point when you initially began this, did information come in to you indicating that there was a sexual abuse component in the attacks? And if so, what did you first learn, and then what did you do going forward?
As I was preparing these legal briefs or short letters to the UN about what's happening here, I found myself going through telegrams groups of Hamas, going through international media, understanding that actually people outside of Israel know far more than us. And then I saw the video of Shani Luk being taken, a young woman being taken almost naked with a very abnormal form in her body in a truck into Gaza, being spat on, her body abused in a way that was shocking for us to see. The video of Naama Levy, one of the a young woman that was taken with her trousers with blood and very violently by multiple terrorists into a car. We started seeing very disturbing images, as I said, and understanding that perhaps something much more difficult had happened. And then when we started investigating this and people understood here that we're collecting information about gender-based violence, we started getting more and more information. For instance, very early, we got a video of a woman that was burned. Most of their body is burned, and then the lower part of her body is naked. And she seemed abused. Her body is thrown in one of the roads next to a burned car. So, yes, gradually we got more information for first responders, morgue staff, victims, eyewitnesses that shared very disturbing information with us about the sexual violence, bodies being found tied and cuffed, naked in certain areas of the attack.
המון פיצי ירי, גם ירי ממוקד באזור איבר מין לגברים, וראינו את זה הרבה. היה להם קטע עם איברי מין, גם לנשים וגם לגברים. אנשים שהגיעו אלינו אזרחיות, זה היה, אנחנו ראינו בעיקר או בתוך שדיים או ירי, רק בשדיים, פשוט ירי מקצה של שד לקצה השני, הם הגיעו אלינו בהכרה. אצל גברים איבר מין, ירי באיבר מין היה להם קטע עם זה או לחתוך.
So it seems like you had a certain methodology when you were studying this. So you were looking at the terrorists' own social media posts. You were speaking with first responders who responded to the scenes and saw the victims. And you were also speaking to survivors. Is that right? About
Yes.
what either happened to them or that they witnessed?
Yes, at the beginning we collected reports. We collected reports that were shared, like open source investigation. People shared information in multiple medias and multiple mediums. People shared information with us, sent us images. At a certain point, for instance, I was invited to speak at the UN. So people here in Israel have heard that I'm going to deliver a speech. So they texted me, Cochav, will you share that this happened? Have you seen this image? Please tell them that this happened. It was one of the most devastating days in my life. But once we started understanding that we have to do it in a very structured way and documented way, we established an archive. Today, the head of the archive is the former deputy head of Yad Vashem archive. So we have very amazing experts in Israel and outside of Israel that are helping us document these war crimes in a way that preserves the information for generations to come, collect testimonies that are filmed, preserves the videos, preserves the images. And this is what we're doing and analyzing them, of course.
And so when you say we, tell us about the Civil Commission.
Yes. So once I realized we're seeing these fractured reports on what happened, together with other colleagues, we decided to establish a commission, a civil commission that will start documenting all of the crimes against women and children. This is where we started, all the gender-based crimes and all the crimes against children. So, as I said, people voluntarily shared information with us. Hamas, first of all, the quickest information we got was actually from Hamas' own documentation of the crimes. They celebrated the attack. They came in with cameras, with GoPro cameras, uploaded the videos and images to social media, to Twitter, to Facebook, to other Telegram groups. And then this is what we started to collect. We understood that we have to do everything in our power to preserve this because it will be denied, and it was denied so early. So this is what we did from the very beginning.
Okay. So let me ask you, let's talk first. In generalities, what were the patterns of sexual abuse that you saw in women and men? I think you're going to get to that in generalities, and then we'll go specifically to what was occurring on the day at the Nova Festival and move on from there. But in general, what types of sexual abuse did you see appear throughout the attack?
Yes. I think one of the most important things for me to say is that we were seeing sexual torture, bodies that were abused, mutilated, burned. Some of them were burned in a way that we could depict the sexual violence. As I said, like this woman, that her upper body was burned, but then the lower part, you could see that she wasn't wearing any underwear and didn't have her clothes. So, but in other cases, you see bodies completely burned. So a lot of the bodies were burned and cuffed, gagged. Men, for instance, were found also without in underwear and cuffed in different locations in ways that we gradually understood that this wasn't one incident or two incidents or three incidents. It happened in multiple locations and in ways that seemed horrifically similar. Women were shot in their genitalia. Some of them we know that were alive while they were shot in their genitalia. We even have a video and images of a man that was found with his the entire area of his genitals burned. So this is the kind of torture that they've been through.
And I've also heard that with women's breasts, that they had some, I don't know if it's a fascination, but that there was the mutilation of women's breasts was a common thing. Was that the case?
The mutilation of bodies was something that repeated in different locations. In Nova, there was a case of a gang rape, and eyewitnesses that saw a woman's breast being cut and hair being gang raped in a way that when she was alive and then when she was dead. So
you're saying that she was raped when she was alive, but then also after she was deceased?
Yes.
I mean, that is just, it's very hard to imagine as a woman, or as a human, really, that type of activity.
حماس وطلع داعش. ايش بيناتهم؟ يعني شو الفرق بين الحماس والداعش؟ من الكلام يعني اللي قلت انه تقطيع الرؤوس والاطفال والحرق والهذا انه صارت حماس داعش. يعني حماس صارت داعش، انه داعش بتحرق هي وبتقطع وبتذبح. يعني صارت من حماس شيء اسمه داعش هالقد. يعني ايش صار؟ مش مخ، يعني بطلوا بني ادمين. اللي وصلوا ايش؟ صاروا حيوانات. يعني هذا العمل بنعملش كبني ادم، انه اقطع راس بني ادم او اسوي واحد جثه انه سبيه وميته واعمل فيها وازني فيها وهي جثه. يعني مش بني ادم بيعمل الشغلات اللي زي هيك. يمنوها. يمنوها يعني.
Did you learn of the sexual abuse at other locations, the sexual torture? Yes, the truth.
In the kibbutzim as well, first responders that came in to take the bodies have found women and men, as I said, the same, tied and cuffed, and their body was abused. Objects were inserted in their genitals.
When we picked up the mattress, we found her body. This woman, we could not identify her from her face. She was naked totally. And she had nails around her female organs. Not only nails, but different plastic, metal things. She's a woman that's so you can do whatever you want.
One of the things that I have to share is that for us, the most difficult and a challenging part of our work is being exposed to those materials since October 7th, being exposed to it on a daily basis, needing to describe this. I feel like now I try not to overthink it, but the difficult part is that we have, as days goes by, we have more and more identification of the victims. So that's becoming much harder.
So this is continuing.
Exactly.
And when you say identifying the victims, do you mean that you know that sexual torture has happened to a specific body, but now you're learning the identity, so there is now an identity associated with that torture?
Exactly. And we meet families, and sometimes we take testimonies from families, but they don't know, and we cannot share with them what we know. We were able, for instance, collaborating with other databases that have done such an amazing work here in Israel, collecting information, corroborating and cross-referencing our materials. We've been able to understand who the person is, and it's that's the challenging part of the work.
I want to ask you, because I saw a speaker on this issue, but I know that you have the actual facts, so I want to make sure that we're presenting facts. There was a first responder who discovered a group of young women tied to trees in the area of the Nova Festival with rods and sticks and things like that shoved in their vaginas.
העצים האלה, כל עץ ועץ פה ראיתי בחורות קשורות, עם הידיים כפות. מישהו רצח אותם, אנס אותם, תעלל בהם, פה בעצים האלה. הרגליים שלהם היו פתוחות. מי שרואה זה יודע שהתעללו בבנות. מישהו הפשיד אותם, מישהו אנס אותם. והחדירו לעברים הפנימיים שלהם כל מיני דברים, כמו קרשים, כמו ברזלים. מעל 30 בנות נרצחו ונאנסו פה.
Is that something that you know to be a fact?
So we know that this is his eye testimony. This is what he saw. He also gave testimony to us, and I feel like we need to trust the victims. We need to trust the first responders, and a lot of the dynamics after October 7th was actually such. How would you say? People have been targeted for being brave enough to speak of what they saw, and many, once they saw that the kind of response people get, started fearing to speak as well. So sometimes we have people telling us, please make sure what I say here remains here and no one knows, or people asking us to conceal what they said and then to make sure it is told only in ways that the public doesn't know, or they can't be targeted for what they saw.
And that's really appalling that you have victims who have endured so much. And the first responders, I mean, the trauma that they endured upon seeing these things, that someone would target them for something that was completely out of their control. They're the victims. It's just appalling.
And I'm sure you saw this after 9/11. Now what we're seeing is that first responders are committing suicides. It's kind of an unreported phenomena, but since we are trying to get to all of these first responders, we unfortunately learn of many of those who already committed suicide and took to the grave whatever they knew or saw, and survivors of the Nova that are committing suicide. So, yes.
So the atrocities just continue to happen even after the actual event. Let me ask you about the sexual abuse component and what you've learned about activities that may have occurred during captivity of the hostages.
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking this. I think much less is known about what has happened to the hostages. First of all, they become very known figures in Israel and around the world, so they fear sharing what happened to them. Some of them who do share, as I said, become targets, especially, for instance, I want to mention Amit Sosna, who was so brave to share of the sexual violence that she has experienced, and she got attacked in so many places, but also has been so brave to share of what happened to her. Of what we know, the sexual abuse in captivity was ongoing and extremely brutal. Extremely brutal.
Are there examples that you can share without identifying clearly the victims and having them endure even more trauma?
So one of the most difficult cases for me even to share is that family members were forced to commit sexual abuse against each other. Unfortunately, those were also children.
I mean, who does that? I can't even get my head around what you're saying.
It's awful. And we only know fractions of it. I think we know a fraction of what really happened there. Young women that were sexually abused, assaulted, tortured, men that were tortured, sexually tortured in captivity. As I think more and more information will only emerge as time passes, and some of them have passed away, so I'm not sure how the information will be revealed. We just know it was systematic and done very, very early after they were taken in captivity. So I want to say that from those who returned from captivity very early, the kind of information that we have is horrific. So I can't even imagine what has happened to those who are still there and still happening.
And let us just remember just for a second that we're in September of 2025, and there are still 48 hostages in captivity in Gaza today.
Yes.
In this process of studying and documenting the sexual torture of women, men, and children, did you also observe patterns of another type of activity that seemed to be intentional?
Yes. So one of the most difficult things that we have exposed was actually during the documentation of the sexual violence. While we were collecting every piece of information or every piece of, video and image that has women and children, we started seeing the abuse of families. Again and again, videos of families that the terrorists entered their houses, killed family members, children in front of their parents in front of their children. And I think we spoke about it a little bit about how being a mother to children has just made this far more complicated for us documenting this, and for me personally documenting this. And I found myself physically unable to document those crimes. I remember that we usually sit together in teams or groups reviewing the materials. And I remember saying, okay, we have to stop. I can't see this. I want to give one specific example. It was the Dunn family, where you see the terrorists enter the house, and the house is covered with balloons. We know it was the 18th birthday of Mayan, and she was murdered. And you see the video shows their family right after the murder. So you see the father is terrified. He's just shocked. The siblings are crying and screaming, and the mother is telling them, this didn't happen. And we have quite a few minutes of this.
And the children, I presume, were younger than 18. They were children.
They were children.
Witnessed
much, much younger.
Their older sister be killed. So you're saying that the terrorists themselves filmed this. Tell me about that before we go into more examples and your findings on this torture of families. For those that may not know, tell us about the methods that the terrorists used when they came into the homes, what equipment they brought to film these events that they were apparently proud of.
They brought cameras with them, GoPro cameras. They came in enthusiastically. You can see them even celebrating, chanting religious chants, scaring the family. They then took the phones of victims to live stream these atrocities through Facebook to the other family members to see. In many, many cases that we have documented, we see how it wasn't just one terrorist that thought it will be extremely cruel to upload the murder of a person to his family on Facebook.
And this was using the victim's Facebook account.
Exactly. The victim's Facebook account. They did both. They used also the Telegram groups of Hamas, the Al Jazeera, and other Telegrams groups that were operating. But I think the cruelest was when they used the social media of the victims themselves. So the first one to see the social media and to get notification, on the other side are family members that try to get every piece of information that they can about their loved ones, and them seeing a notification that something is being live streamed from their families, they open it and they either see the murdered body of their mother, of grandmother, of a son, of a family being taken hostage, of their terrified family members being held by terrorists. I can't even imagine what they've been through. I can say that they've been through hell. I often say that if there is hell, this is what it looks like. They are onto something, Lara. They are onto the fact that abusing your loved ones, abusing someone that you have family relationship with, is something that will tear you apart for generations to come. And I want to mention that because it's a trauma that lasts for generations. It's not only something that...
it doesn't happen once.
It doesn't happen once. And these videos have a life of their own. You know, many of the victims, especially, for instance, Shaniluk's family, they are devastated by the fact that she was documented in this way. Like, this is the last memory of her. And the world knows Shaniluk because she was taken almost naked into Gaza and her body disformed and being spat on. So they even lose something by this cruel documentation of these moments. For us as researchers, it allowed a window to this hell. We were suddenly able to see this in a way that most vividly allowed us to understand that this has not been understood yet. I found myself contacting colleagues here in Israel and around the world, asking them, have you heard of this? Have you heard of the torture of families? I tried every variation: violence against families, weaponization of families. Where can I read about it? And I found the responses to be puzzled as I was. And I thought, how come I haven't heard of this? And then this is what got us to start and investigate each and every family that has had a family member either kidnapped or murdered. We collected information from each and every family member, what happened to them. And when we put it on a spreadsheet, and when you put it on a spreadsheet and you start seeing the stories and what happened, for instance, separating family members, we remember, keep repeating this. They separated me from my son. They took my son away from me. They took my daughter. They murdered my daughter and the baby in my hands. It's like understanding that something keeps repeating, and then you see it in a spreadsheet and you understand that this was not random. They separated family members, tore them apart. They murdered family members in front of one another, making sure someone lives to endure the trauma. Burnt family houses. Well, one of the report that we wrote about it opens with a quote of a child. The child, he is a teenager, and he said, and then mom died on top of me. he shared how he was hiding under the body of his mom. He was injured. The terrorist entered the house, killed his parents, thought they also killed him, but he was able to stay injured under his mother's body, thinking that she protected them in many ways. And then they returned to burn the house. So I want to say that the burning of houses, the vandalism, was also a repeating thing that people shared, that they were hiding in the shelters and they heard them just ruining everything. They spent hours burning and ruining, and he was able to escape. So they returned and they burned the house, and he was able to escape after they left and share with us what happened with him. And so once we started seeing that we can identify specific patterns, we knew that this was not random, that this was a coordinated, organized attack, very organized, in ways that still give me shivers.
And again, murder is evil. Torture is evil. But to take something to that level requires an amount of, it seems like, hate that is unfathomable to me, that you can hate that much.
Yeah.
And it also seems like it's the dehumanization as well.
Yeah.
I mean, how can one human do that to another?
I still struggle with this question. I feel like I'm so naive, and I was so naive before October 7th. I remember sharing a year before October 7th, I delivered a lecture about how anti-Semitism is rising around the world, and attacks of the LGBT community is just growing in Europe, in the United States, and regression in women's rights in Israel, in Europe, in the United States. And I remember saying that very bad things are going to happen. And then I've never imagined October 7th happening. But I want to say that I still cannot understand this hatred, this, I don't know, even an animal deserves, not to be abused. So I can't understand the amount of hatred that causes people to create such suffering.
And on the note of animals, we've been talking about women and children and men and families.
Yes.
But, while we're on the note of families, family pets were even targeted.
Yes. Wow, I forgot to share this. Thank you so much for bringing it up. So many families have shared that the terrorists killed their pets and made sure they witnessed that as well. And I could see how much suffering it caused them to share with us that they saw their animal being killed so viciously and unneededly. Sometimes they said that the animal was hiding, and then they made sure they killed it. So it's just, it's amazing that you bring it up. We mention it in the report.
So you speak about the report. This phenomena that you believed was occurring, and I know you mentioned earlier you reached out to scholars. How did that evolve? Did you and other scholars come together and determine that there was, in fact, a phenomena? And if so, did you give it a name?
Yes. Once I understood that it was never named, and that other scholars are experiencing the same kind of confusion that I was experiencing, this is when we started collecting all the information we could about what happened to families. And once we understood that this was an organized attack, we decided that it deserves a name, that the victims deserve a language to express this unique suffering. I want to emphasize it's the unique evil that it creates. The fact that it's one thing to know that you have lost your child. It's another thing to have to witness it. And it's just this kind of understanding made us understand that we have to name it. We called it kinocide, kin as in familial relation and side as in the systemicity of it. And now I find myself often explaining it as family-targeted terror, making sure people understand that families are being targeted by terrorists, and making sure that people understand that this kind of terror and strategy could be copied by other terrorist groups around the world. Because when we see these, me and you, when we see these videos, we are horrified, but they might get inspiration from seeing so much suffering being caused and understand that there is something here that they can intensify the harm of victims by abusing their loved ones.
That is a terrifying thought. I mean, as a mother myself, we've talked about this. I can't imagine watching my child die. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't think most could. So you created a report. We have a copy here. It's entitled "The Civil Commission on October 7th Crimes by Hamas Against Women and Children: A Crime Without a Name for Victims Without a Voice, Kinocide." Is this your publication right here?
Yes.
And it's been endorsed by a number of scholars around the world.
Yes. Thank God we had amazing men and women that stood by our side to make sure first we can carry out this work. At a certain point, I thought that I cannot be immersed in those materials. I know each and every story of the family, and I felt emotionally exhausted. So we had amazing men and women helping us. So I want to mention Professor Owen Kotler, the head of the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in Canada. They joined our research and provided insights about the global context of this phenomena. Professor Kotler was the former Minister of Justice of Canada. And Professor David Crane was the head of the Special Tribunal of Sierra Leone, and he told us, please mention that it happened in Sierra Leone. And Professor Nienke Grossman, who is a judge in the Inter-American System of Human Rights, and other, Professor Yuval Shani, the head of the Human Rights Committee at the UN, former head of the Human Rights Committee at the UN, and other really amazing experts around the world that gave us strength to reveal this and to raise awareness to this concerning phenomena.
Well, I'm glad that there are other scholars out there that, not that they've seen the similar events, but that we have an awareness, and, with information, comes power, right?
Yes.
If we can identify what it is and recognize who may use this weapon, then hopefully we can begin to, at least prepare for it.
Exactly.
And I know you've mentioned this several times, but I cannot imagine the difficulties in doing this work. And you've been doing this for almost 2 years at this point.
Yes.
How do you and your team ensure that you're okay?
Well, it continues to be the most challenging part of our work. It continues to be challenging for me personally. So many people ask us, how do we keep going? And I want to say that one of the things that keeps me going is knowing that we help the victims, that it has impact on their lives. And I want to share one recent example. A father that heard me on the news, a father of a 19-year-old woman that was kidnapped into Gaza. And he heard me saying that the suffering of families is different, that seeing your loved ones being murdered or abused or tortured is a different kind of suffering that traumatize you in ways that have not yet been properly explored and or criminalized. And he called me and he told me, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because I thought I was going mad. My daughter was murdered, and I see other fathers rebuilding their lives, finding purpose, and I already had 2 heart attacks. But I saw my daughter. The Hamas published a video of her, and I actually saw the video, and I was afraid that they will know before that I know. It's a horrific video. She's begging for her life. And then the last image in the video is her murdered body. And he told me, thank you, or now I know that I'm not mad, that I'm not crazy. And not mad, I meant that I know that I'm not crazy. I know that I've experienced something else, that it's unlike other fathers, that I understand better. And for me, the ability to give language to those victims, to meet victims around the world telling us, please tell our stories. And we make sure we tell the story of the Yazidi community in Iraq, of the people of Rwanda, of people in Sudan, telling that they are being abused in this way that leaves marks on a nation, on a family, on a community, in ways that is very, very traumatizing, is something that keeps us going on, keeps us doing this work.
Well, the work you're doing is so invaluable. But I just wonder, how do you keep your group, the Civil Commission, how do you keep or take care of yourselves, having to be exposed to all of the horror on a repeated basis for a wonderful purpose, but how do you take care of yourself?
So that continues to be the hardest part of our work. It continues to be the most difficult challenge. It's a challenge every day, every single day. One of us that couldn't sleep last night, one of us that had nightmares, that needs to take a break, that even needs to find something else to do because it's too much. It's too much, and it has an accumulating effect. It doesn't become easier. It doesn't become easier. As I said, we know now some of the victims' names. We know their stories. We can suddenly see their faces when they were not as a murdered body, but as a person, as a full person with life. And it has impact on each of us, wow.
Adam.
Wow, I'm sorry.
No.
Anyway, I wanted to say that it has impact on each of our families, and but we feel it's important. We support each other. We have therapy. I'm sorry, let me catch my breath.
Good.
I wish I could say I could empathize. I can't imagine having been that in depth into so many cases, and continuing that effort for the good of society you're making a huge, unimaginable sacrifice. And it is amazing. And I hate to simplify it. I talk about one of the lessons that I got from my dad many years ago. He's deceased now, but he always led by example. You do the right thing for the right reasons, the right way, and the right thing is usually not the easy thing. And this is certainly not the easy thing, but it's the right thing.
I feel like we owe it to the victims to continue this work, especially those who have no voice. They are voiceless, and sometimes I meet them in my dreams, and I feel like we need to do this for them. That's the only thing that I feel like is worth doing this work, because the truth needs to be known, and it needs to be kept, especially around the sexual atrocities, around crimes that were never defined or never understood as such, around this cruelty. I often ask myself, how come I'm doing this work? Because I'm the most, my mother always said that I was afraid to go upstairs.
Well,
They're in
you
our
are a
house.
very brave woman.
Yeah, thank you. But we're doing this for them. We're doing this for them.
We all thank you.
Tada. Thank you so much, Lara.
Hey, 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 hey,